focus mainly on, focus mainly on, science communication, olfaction, all around perfume, but not only. And in this series of classes, actually, my aim, my hope is to give you not just pour a lot of didactic information, but give you also some tools of that you can use to how to interpret scientific content, scientific knowledge, and how to translate also in the daily perfume life, let's say, or just as an amateur, as a curious person, or as a professional. So the idea is, of course, going through some technical information. I will try to use a plain language, but in a way that you get a glimpse of the method and a toolkit somehow, so that you can have at least some references. So when you get news about new analysis of indoor pollution and candles are like very dangerous, stuff like that. So sometimes it's easy, of course, to feel if a news is a clickbait, but sometimes it's not so obvious. And digging into scientific paper information and try to understand and apply also in our daily life is not always so obvious. So the idea is to also try to understand a little bit this process and this mechanism. So I'm gonna share now my screen. As we said already, I will leave some time at the end so that we can dig more and share questions, comments, or stuff that are not clear, unless there is something very technical and specific in the moment where I'm speaking that is not clear. So in this case, please let me know so that we can clarify immediately and proceed. So the candles actually are a topic that I like a lot, from the science and also from the application, and also for all the fuzzy and talk around it, all the myths and the fascination, and actually how they were born also is very interesting. So the idea is to go through some origins of the candles during this class, see how they were used and how this changed over the time, and why now we are again using selling and buying a lot of candles, why this happened. So to do this, I would also invite you, give you some little, let's say, tip for very short, quick home experiments. This can be done even with kids. And it's just a fun way sometimes to approach or try yourself how also the physics behind the candle works, because we are very much focused on the content of the burning, but what does it mean lighting a candle? How does it actually work, the mechanism, the physical part, and how this what implies then for all the emission that in many cases seems to be so worrying. To do this, I also invite always people to really experiment and try. We usually in the perfumery, but not only, we always invite people to smell different quality of the same thing, of the same odorant, or to try, for example, different flavors of the same dark chocolate to see and experience the differences. Same with flavors, aroma, or so the same applies actually to candles. So I would like really to invite you to observe the candles that you have maybe at home, most likely, or maybe not, and see how big is the market, even when you are already into candles, realizing really how the shapes, the form, the colors, the additions of decoration that which are being also very regulated, by the way, because, for example, putting decoration like flowers, woods, and other stuff on top of the candles seems sometimes to be very dangerous because they are very inflammable material. And when you are like, as an amateur, starting to make candle maybe, or just collecting candles, sometimes it's not easy and obvious to take care of these elements. So the shape of the candles, the dimension of the candles, actually the type are already affecting in a way some part of their functioning, and also the implication in case you want to add or use scented candles or colors or other features. So this is why it's very interesting actually to really have an overview, a survey of all the type of candles, materials, and see also lighting, or maybe making a little kind of observational experiment, just lighting, comparing to a pillar candle, one from paraffin, for example, one from soy wax, and see how long they last, who burns faster, how is the light, how is this the diffusion. You will already realize how this little parameter changes a lot. And sometimes it's not a matter of this is better than what in absolute, but for what you want or what you need sometimes. If you are a candle maker, sometimes what affects your making is also like the vision, also the ethical or perspective of want it or not using only natural material, for example. But it can be also be affected by the budget you have for the purpose of that candles, if it's meant to be used for a big space, for warm space, for so all these kind of elements again actually sometimes affect what will be the candle at the end, more than what is usually considered the quality or something, because some of these parameters sometimes are much more relatives. So as I said, I invite you to have different set of candles then, and for two little experiments that I will show during the class, I provided here the kits that you need. So you would need a flashlight, a flame distributor, this is for cooking, or a fork can also work. Somehow you will try a little bit, but can work. And in some cases, if the is not already made, a trimmer is always nice, because you know after lighting for a while a candle, the wick gets this mushroom shape afterwards, and this creates more soot and smoke. It's more a practical thing, but it's nice to trim it and to have a nicer shape and clean light. This we will see in a moment later why is important. So let's go into the meat. So this series actually, and the idea of this this class in particular, and why I proposed it in this in December in particular, comes for like a citation, or maybe like to remember Michael Faraday, the English British physicist, who was actually making a series of lectures called Christmas lectures, which were popular science. Actually, he was not only a scientist, but also science communicator at a very early time. And he organized a series of lectures on physics about several topics. And usually they were a kind of show talk with also experiments, and they were meant for everyone. So they were, in particular, these Christmas lectures were meant to be for also not only academics, and also young people and even kids, so that they could attend this lecture in the evening where they were less busy from work and other activities. And so was, again, as I said, the beginning of the science communication in a way. And in a special series of this lecture, actually, he used the science behind the candles to explain and communicate some physics about combustion, and not only, but also very funny fun experiments about exactly how the candles work and how the lighting of candles work. So this I find a very nice curiosity to know. And he collected this series of lectures and presentation in a book, which is not very well known. So it's known more for other publication. But the chemical history of a candle is a kind of masterpiece of science communication and science. Is free to download, so you find it with public access if you just Google it. But I will provide all materials and bibliography and link with the material of this class, so in case you can find it. And I put it also here. This is just an illustration book, which is I find it just cute, and it recalls a little bit this lecture in a more fun and accessible way. So again, just to, if you are into this kind of things. And actually the illustration are also very clear, not only for children, but for adults as well, I think. So this is a bit the context where we are starting. But the idea is also that what makes candles, again, so fascinating to us in our days is also this relation that we had and we developed in the last years mainly with a kind of ritual. And sometimes this happened always also in the past, of course, with this rituality, and sometimes also with ceremonial and religious ceremonials that were implying perfume, incenses, and candles as well. They were somehow all part of the key elements of the rituals. But we need also to remind that past time electricity was not there, so the candles was the most important light source in the darkness. But so this rituality in a way is still retained in our days in many different ways. This is just a citation to have like some references. Everyone has his own little ritual, even now sometimes if you are into candles. But in the past, one of the main use of candles was also to track time. And some of the clock that were based on candles actually were very much used in a different part of the world. The Roman Empire used this kind of system in China, Japan, East Asia, and other places in the world were very common. And one of the basic system was just to have like a pillar candle or a stick candle, and having, for example, a kind of system graduation here. So you would know more or less how long it takes for the candle to go down from the first graduation sign to the second one, and so on. So this was one of the easier way to measure it in a very simple way. There were also other systems that then were integrated in a similar way and implied not only the candles, but also incense. So in the figure A here on the top, this is a very sophisticated, fancy incense clock that, if I well remember, is from China. But they were similar also in other part of East Asia in the past. In the B, we have one that is more is an oil lamp, but has the same system of the previous slide. So with this kind of number of graduation, the low. So while the oil was used and going low, so it would measure and sign the time passing. And so in different ways. So we have different very interesting use of candles and lighting system. And this constitute, as I said, contributed to create a kind of part of a culture system and use of these elements. Again, as a daily life, as a ritual, as a part of like a tool that was not only a fashion tool or design tool as we have today, but more like an essential element actually, because as I said, there were not electricity, so the only light source in an habitation or everywhere were mostly this kind of system. And this changes also the perspective of the use and also the environment around. So how they were made. In origin, many of them were obtained by fat sources, and some of this, in some cases, of course, the wick were made by rice paper. This mainly in East Asia again, or in other part also with again paper mainly. And the fatty part were obtained depending from the region and from the availability of the fat source, from insect seeds, tallow, and other sources as well. We had also beeswax. This was also in the past quite expensive and fancy, so it was relatively used, but was still quite luxurious element. So this is why we find also many other sources of fat that was used for the candles. And just as a curiosity to think how much the creativity of humans works sometimes, in some area of the North Pacific, also Canada, the people from the origin of this region, in many cases, were using also what is called candlefish. So is this guy here on the top. These fish are very, very fatty. So the people were using them, and when they were dried, were just put with a stang or something and in the fish, and used like this, like a torch, like a candle. Was a very rudimental in a way, but also very effective. And again, this is just to give a panorama of different uses, applications, and how also somehow the techniques behind the candle making developed in different way and refined over time, depending on the use and the need and the availability of materials in the different regions. At a certain point, one of the most used sources and material for the wax were the tallow, and this was originated mainly from animals. The fatty part is a triglyceride. Here is just a schematic just to have an idea about what is the chemical composition at a very basic level. And from this, you can have different flavor, let's say, or type of this kind of fattiness that can be saturated. And we have the palmitic acid, stearic acid, oleic, linoleic. These are compositions that sometimes affect a little bit the burning and the fat quality. And the point is that this was at the moment the most used sources of the candles. And again, it's important to know this because it was still not so easy to assess this kind of material, but was a very important daily base supply, because again, people needed to light the house to see, to have light. And not having or being able to buy or produce yourself this fat from animals implied also to have animals, for example, or be able at least to buy such a fat or such a system. So this is why people started also to use and to have different kind of other sources, which sometimes were not so efficient, but they were still used because poor people mainly could not afford maybe a certain kind of material. From this, for example, the rash plant that you see in the top was also sometimes used because it could bring a little light for sometimes for a while, so sometimes was used as well. And we have also here in the middle a cartoon which was a satirical one in the UK, and seeing again and playing with this idea that people needed these elements, but was not so easy to find, and they would light any kind of sources to have something to use it, and even fat from other animals and whatever. So this again, just to give an idea about also how when we use a daily object that we take it for granted, actually is sometimes a very interesting story who reflects also the story of our society and how we lived, and what this implied also in terms of social and economical wealth and well-being and everything. Even more because candles somehow today nowadays are perceived as something related to the well-being and the wellness area, because it's something that we use as a recreational somehow item. At a certain point, mainly from the let's say 15th century, we started to use more also the spermaceti as a source of fat and oil to produce also the candles. So here is the sperm whale that was hunted for this purpose, and on the top here you see a schematic cartoon of the section of the head of this animal, in which you see on the top, on the gray part, this big huge camera called spermaceti organ. This is a big camera in which there are a tank, in a way we can imagine, like in which is contained this fatty oils. This was a big source. So the animals were hunted for the fat also of the body, used again as a burning sources and to make candles, and this part was actually very, very valued. The components are listed here just to give you some technical part in case you are more interested in it. In here, as I said, alcohols is meant as a chemical type, not just only the alcohol as we use in the common language. And so this was very important. At a certain point, what made the decrease of this, the use of this, which was also very expensive. And if you think also about the whale hunting that is described also in the Moby Dick book, for example, novel, and other, you will find a lot of details, not only for related also to the ambergris story and how much these animals were used and hunted. So for a long time till the mid of 19th century, actually, this was one of the main source. And then after that, we have the starting of the new chemistry area. So the science and the chemistry made a big jump. So we started to synthesize isolating molecule. And around the mid of the 19th century was distilled for the first time the paraffin. And then gradually these were introduced more and more in the candle making. So the paraffin and the stearic acid, they became a very useful tool and element and material, because they were quite cheap to produce, and they were also very stable. So they made candles who were burning very, very well, producing not much salts, and again, was very easy to produce them. So this is why they started to produce and use more and more. On this is also important to add another thing, because this applies also to our days. Even now so all the industry that is based actually, unfortunately, on petrol and other compounds which we know that they have a big high impact on the environment are still not fully is not fully possible to avoid. So this implies the use of this compound for production of plastic in pharmaceutics, in oil productions, in many departments of industries. And usually when there is the debate about natural product or soy wax, because now is one of the mainstream material for candles, compared to paraffin and stearic oil, many times is mentioned this impact on the environmental part, which on the basis is true in terms of that we should anyway, of course, reduce the use of this this material from the beginning. But in the full chain of production, actually sometimes so the paraffin and the stearic acid are byproduct of processes that are still already happening anyway. So the point, and there are many cases used also for candles then, while in other many other contexts, we will go there again later on this point, the production of soy wax needs and require also a very high energy consuming and industrial process to get actually the wax. And sometimes the point is to balancing and check properly what implies all this chain, so and what is really the most the higher impact of the two processes. Sometimes it's not so obvious, or sometimes they are almost there, and unfortunately we are in this kind of impasse where we really actually the very sustainable way would be just to light and use less candles actually. So but then this is we go back again later. But so this point was again about the paraffin manufacturing stearic acid, and this new material so made a very huge step in the candle making for a certain time, because at the beginning of the 20th century then what happened is that then the light bulb came. So people started to need less and less candles. For sometimes there was still an overlapping, of course, because still electricity was not in every house, in each house, and was also not affordable for everyone. So for quite some years, there was still quite a good use of the candles for just lighting the houses. But then the consuming of this item then went down. And what came again after some years was what is more a market close to what we have nowadays still, which is a completely different way of using candles and appreciating candles, that is more again for recreational, for just a decoration, fun, still also rituals, but so in a different way. And these are bring also other requirements in a way, so other way of making candles. We have now many more fancy candles which are more elaborated from the visual point of view, because we use them also as a decoration. And for the scent, because the use of scented candles actually are more like a relatively recent issue, just because we use it now for this also scent appreciation, or for the indoor fragrancing. But in the past, actually, the situation might have been very very different. And the switch, also the turn of getting used to a different lighting, could that be also very strange. This again is just a funny episode from Downton Abbey, where we see exactly this transition in time and technology, where we have this transition from the use of candles to the electricity and light bulbs, and how this was perceived from many people. Again, we see how in daily life, daily object can really reflect and tell us big stories about the evolution, development of our societies in a way. But not only, because the perception and the use of our senses and how we experience our environment also change it. Because imagine to have a context or environment where everything is dark, and how you perceive the colors and the details of your environment, switching from the daylight to the night, and illumination when you have only few candles, and most of the cases were few candles because they were expensive, and how this changed all these perceptions. As a curiosity, I want to cite that there have been some studies in art and about painting in particular, and how the paintings and the production were made in the past, considering also the condition, the lighting condition in which they were meant to be watched and seen. Because now we are used to see our paintings or artwork in a lighting condition which are very different from the past. So when we are looking at a painting or an artwork, actually, it's nice to contextualize because the subject, of course, reflects the time in which it was produced, but also this kind of perspective, because the lighting of the rendering of colors and the atmosphere, when you see a painting with in the lighting condition in which they were, which was almost semi-obscurity or quite dark, would that be probably different from what we see now in a museum or even in a indoor whatever situation. So this is just an inspirational way. And actually some researchers made a kind of test. In one of these was made in Italy, in Venice, if I well remember, at the Correr Museum, where they made it a set for some painting, trying to reproducing the lighting of the past and the now and the current one, to see the differences in this kind of perceptions. And so I will put this also in the bibliography, in the references, so in case you are curious to dig in these details. So all this to go back again, as I said, to nowadays, because we said a lot about all the poetry behind this and the emotional part and the historical part, but at the end of the day, today, we use a lot of candles, we buy a lot of candles, and what makes everything so interesting from a certain part of the market is that it moves a lot of money, and it has a huge market. These are some data from the just few years ago. This is from Europe, and I have some also from for the US, just to give two different market. And we see that there's a continuous growth of the production. This is also interesting to notice that these are still pre-pandemics, which was already rising, but actually during the pandemics and afterwards actually kept rising, or even more. We know also just from popular news that we started being at home more, we started to use more candles and scenting products, for example, and this is reflected by these numbers. And so here is another one, more recent. This again is related to Europe, also because I'm based in Europe, so I have a better, more updated point of view from this. This is why. And we see that the import and the export are both quite high. So the market is really really huge. For the States, what I have is one of the recent data, in this case for the import. As far as I understood, that I got from some of the recent data, seems that in the States at the moment, the import is higher than the export. In general, as an average, is still quite a huge market as well, growing. And again, there are some also differences between the area and states in the US as a production and manufacturing. But and these are just for relatively small big business. So I have to say that from these sources, I think the very small or independent small producer, I'm not sure if they were included. I don't think so, because for Europe, for example, they count industries and producer where they have at least 20 workers or more, and most of the time it applies also to other statistics for the rest of the world. But this, again, just to have again some numbers, because sometimes we realize, unless you are not exactly in that part of you are really working on that, we don't know exactly how big is and why some people are so sensitive somehow to the topic. And this goes because it's, of course, in a very capitalistic society. Unfortunately, this point makes sometimes a big difference. But so this is just to go back now to our science. So till now we had seen just a bit of the context of why and how we used candles from the very beginning of our societies, and also how we intermingled with our daily life and the development of and changing of our habits and new discoveries and a new way of living in the society, mainly in as we said, the capitalistic considered modern societies. But we have seen also different kind of traditional way of using it. So going to understand what exactly a candle is and how it works, this is could be interesting to have a bit of knowledge, at least not about the deep physics behind it, but which is also fun actually. But the point is that when we are talking about candles and market, one of the most important issue at the moment are the environmental impact, pollution production, and health. So to understand what exactly is burning when a candle is burning is useful to understand a bit how it works and how what does it mean lighting a candle. Here there is a very nice draw, is from the past, but it still somehow depict some of the main issue. Now we will have, I put several pictures in different flavors of this kind of flame, because we will go a bit into see why and what generates this kind of shape, and again, what are the products and the off products of this chemical process. Usually in the candle we can see, or in the flame of the candles we can see different elements if you really look at it closer, and you will discover also that there are also different colors in the flame, and the shape that changes and is affected also by the external condition. So this is the very first little experiment that I suggest to you, invite you to try at home. Here I make just a quick view of what would be. And this is an example that even Faraday made during his Christmas lecture. So this is a fun quote of it. So you need a flashlight and some darkness, but not fully actually. And a white wall actually would make it. And the idea is just to light a candle. One of this kind of shape is easier because you need to be able to project the shadow of the candle on the wall. So you light a candle, you put a flashlight very close to the flame, and on trying to project it against the wall, the white wall on behind, like here. Here would be, I mean, here in the pictures, there is not the flashlight. You will need to put it relatively close to it, actually. So you have just to play around and you will see. And when you see the light of the candle projecting, you will see much clearer the composition somehow. And you can see there is a darker part here in the middle, surrounded by a kind of aura of moving material that you cannot see just by naked eyes here. And the idea is just to understand what is all this thing here around that we cannot just see if we just look at the candle, and why is there. So this is a very nice, is also with children, sometimes is interesting if you want to go into this kind of didactics. And the idea is that actually the candle and the light is fed by the air and the oxygen around the candles. And the heating creates a movement that, of course, we don't see by the eyes, but is there. And we can observe just by the shadow here in this case, going up. This happens in gravity, and it generates this movement, which brings also this drop-like shape to the flame. Let's go a little bit more into details to understand how actually works. This so this pictures is from the children illustration book of Faraday that I showed at the beginning. And it's just because it's a nice picture, we will see it again more in detail. So when we light the candles, actually what is happening is that we have a burning process, which at the beginning we need to light actively. Well, this is where we put like the fire at the beginning. And then we have a fuel. Basically, the system consists in the fuel and oxygen from one side. The fuel is given by the wax, and the oxygen is in the air. And after the burning and combustion process, what comes out that we will have here released is the carbon dioxide and water vapor and heat. We will see also that the temperature of the flame is not homogeneous, but it changes, is different in different parts of the flame because of this process. And the heat, of course, moves and warm up the air around it, around the flame as well. This is why we have this shape of movement going up. And this is called convection. So the heated material and air tends to move more up. And when it releases its temperature, it becomes cold again. So it became more thicker, let's say, heavier in a very like plain way, and goes down again. So this is why we have this kind of up and down movement. And this is what brings also this shape. So here we have a closer view of this mechanism. And what happens is, again, we have, as I said, the wax is making the fuel. At the very beginning, what happens is that we light up the candle. We light the wick, actually. And the wick is important because it makes able the wax liquefied to go up. So at the very bottom here of the candle, the wax start to liquefying, and for capillarity, it's sucked up through the wick. While it's sucking up to the wick, so the combustion process starts, fed also by the oxygen. And here we started to have the first heating part of the process. While the combustion proceeds, the wax material start to, of course, have a chemical reaction because of combustion, and this is what produce all the carbon dioxide, the water vapor, the heat that gets released, and also some soot and other little particle that gets released. And the more you go up on here on the flame, the more you will find all the carbon particles in this part of elements, because they are burning, so that the combustion is going on, and then the chemical reactions are happening, so we will have more particles here released. While at the very beginning, close to the ending of the wick, you still find mainly wax vapor, and not much more, because it's just at the beginning. So actually the heat is higher here on the top of the flame than down, and this is why we have this different part of the composition of the flame, and also the different colors. And the part yellow, usually we see it yellow because it's mainly made by the combustion of carbon, which in our eyes, with our receptor for visible light, it results yellow. Here is another way